Hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of Aftermath Hours, the weekly podcast of Aftermath.site, a worker owned, reader supported website about video games, the internet, and everything that comes after. Aftermath is fully reader supported at this particular moment in time. So if you like what you hear, you can subscribe at aftermath.site/products. I'm Nathan Grayson, and this week I'm joined by Gita Jackson.
That's me. I'm Gita Jackson. I'm distracted by your cat so severely at this moment. She's just so cute. Biscuit,
Yeah.
Biscuit, I want to be your friend.
If only she could hear you.
Ugh.
And then I'm also joined by Harper J.
Hello. This is very surreal to be back with
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
y'all.
It's
It's been a minute and a half.
seriously.
Yes,
You
it's
you were
been like half a decade.
oh my
Been a
god.
while.
Don't it feels like it was like 2 days ago, right? Like that's the wild
Yes,
thing that we were all having mental breakdowns simultaneously in
yes.
a Times Square office. Um but it's actually we've all changed quite a bit. You've been in game dev for some time, and now you
Mhm.
are between projects, I assume.
Yes. I'm
Yes.
uh I'm happily unemployed, I guess. I don't know.
Honestly, who would want to work for a living? I'm asking.
No,
Is it my
it's hard.
husband maybe?
I mean, it's different, right? It's and I think we had finally reached the point where I was at Double Fine longer than I'd ever been at Kotaku, right? So there's a way in which I was really in game dev longer than I had done journalism for a long while, which was very, very surreal as well to hit that
Yeah.
milestone.
Yeah, because I've always, when we worked together, we would often have conversations, just sidebar conversations in our DMs about criticism and the nature of criticism, and I mean also about goofy stuff, right?
Yes.
But also we would be talking. You did the series that I wish had gotten more attention, where you just went in depth on level design with developers for the games you really loved. I remember there was a Dishonored 2 piece that you wrote about the time
Clockwork
travel.
Mansion.
Yes,
Oh
exactly. I
man,
remember
hell
that
yeah.
piece. It was so interesting. And I think the thing that makes you specifically such a good candidate for going from criticism to game dev was that you were already so interested in, as a critic, in how these spaces are made and how they create feeling in you as a player.
Yeah, and m- don't have too much to say about working at Double Fine. It was great. Loved it. I
Yeah.
was around really creative people, right? That was the big thing about it. Not that I wasn't surrounded by awesome creative people during journalism times as well. I definitely was. But it's really interesting to be surrounded by artists and designers who are like doing a different kind of problem solving. So that was a lot of
Yes.
fun.
That
Mhm.
is very true. My husband is working on a couple of novels. He's querying a novel right now. And it is really gratifying in a different way. You know, he went from media to he switched careers recently. And it is gratifying in a different way than journalism is gratifying. Like there's the feeling of writing a story you really care about and sharing something about another person you find really interesting with the world is like an incredible feeling. But it's totally different to share something with the world that came from your own brain and has
Mhm.
origins in it comes from the void ex nihilo into and it's nothing, from nothing, and becomes something, and then watching people react to that is like a completely
Yes.
different kind of feeling.
Yeah, and my job at Double Fine. So for anyone who's listening in, I worked at a company called Double Fine Productions. It's a game studio which was owned by Microsoft. Still is, although right when I was coming in was around the time it got acquired. And my job was content and community stuff. So that was interesting in the sense that my job was like really supportive. It was a lot of like laying up things for other folks and making sure that like, hey, a programmer wants to talk about how they made portals in Psychonauts 2. How can I sit down with them and look over their writing and get it on our website so people understand how that works, right? So it almost felt like being a little bit more of an editor sometimes, which was very
Interesting.
interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, and I should say that, we've convened this particular roundtable of people today because I think there's been a fair amount of discourse about just criticism in general as an idea this week, as a result of several mainstream publications kind of pulling back from it in short succession. We've had most recently Vanity Fair kind of eliminating a lot of critic roles. WAPO, NYT, Associated Press got rid of their entire, just like they're just not going to review books anymore. It's like, yeah, we're done with that. And so I think it kind of bears talking about, okay, what is the value of criticism, and what happens when all these publications say, fuck it, we don't need it anymore.
There's also one more piece I want to mention is from our own Isaiah Colbert, interviewing and talking to anime critics that work at IGN. And I want to highlight that piece in particular because I think it is part of what makes larger media corporations want to abandon the traditional review, right? Like the thing about the traditional review is that the culture of the internet, and especially the culture of fandom on the internet, there is a really strong sense of tribalism, where even if something gets a good review, if the number isn't correct, the reviewer could come under fire and the publication can come under fire. And you know what? People are just sick of that. It's not fun. It sucks.
But yeah, so I guess I just wanted to start with, like, you know, when it comes to doing this kind of writing, Harper, especially when you were Kotaku, I think you very much considered yourself like a critic. Like that was
it was technically my job position.
Yeah.
That was at the end of it. That was what it said on paperwork and stuff. It said senior critic, which is scary.
But with that in mind, like, because I think that you've done a lot of talking about back then, you did a lot of talking about it, and over the years you've talked about it even more, like just how you viewed that role and what you thought the kind of importance of it was. And so to you, what did that mean? What does it mean to be a critic as opposed to even just like a reviewer or whatever?
Yeah, so I have a lot of different thoughts, and everything I'm going to say about like whether or not criticism is important is going to come with a really big asterisk that I kind of want to get out of the way right away, which is as I've gotten older, in my friend circles or in professional circles, I encounter younger writers who kind of think that criticism or arts writing is going to be the catalyst that ignites like all this kind of social change. And my unpopular opinion, and I'm sorry to say it, is no, that is not true.
Like, boy, wouldn't it be so great if West Wing style, I could just convince people to feel the same way that I do by talking.
I would love to give like a Sam Seaborn speech and be like, oh, it means something, damn it. And and to be fair, what I'm saying is not that it means nothing, but it is this notion, right? Like, 2013, Eric Zimmerman writes Manifesto for a Ludic Century, which, if people don't know who Eric Zimmerman was, I think he was an NYU guy, and a lot of what he's saying in this piece is, hey, we have these new interactive works of art that have certain ways that we can communicate with each other. The new century is one of connection, and these new ways of communicating with each other. And one of his bullet points is gaming literacy can address our problems. And I don't think that's true. I think we've had about a decade to realize that that's not true. Criticism by itself doesn't necessarily accomplish a lot. It's nice to think that maybe it will, but you can accomplish more right now going down to your local coffee shop and asking them if you can put down flyers about like what to happen if ICE is at your door, right? That is more important. And that's not like a relative privation thing of saying like it doesn't matter at all, but it's to put everything in perspective. Criticism, which is to say just the process through which we imaginatively converse with a work, maybe not even with the author of that work, but with the work itself, is an emotional exercise. It's something that allows us to think about the world. It allows us to think about where this art came from. It allows us to think about whether or not we agree with what it's saying. And that process is good and important, and strong writing about it is important, and we should still have it. But it's kind of important as the smallest bit of salve for the soul. And then everything else has to be like work, right? Which isn't to say, I think some people think if I just write the right words about Hideo Kojima, I can change people. And maybe that's true on like a small level. Like I'm sure either of you have had times where people have told you individually, hey, I read something you wrote and it really made me rethink my worldview on something. That does happen. But as we talk about the importance of criticism today, it's also understanding that criticism is this thing that fits into a larger puzzle with all these other pieces, right?
Yes.
So it's totally important to have, like there's plenty of places like you're saying that say, hey, we're not going to do book criticism anymore. And that's a problem, not in the sense of just, hey, it's important to talk about art, but it's also the question you have to ask there then is like, okay, what within the last 5 years has led to this?
Yeah, what are the forces, the material forces of the world that has led to a reevaluation of whether it is worth it to spend space and labor on writing a piece of criticism?
Yeah, and some of the conclusions you reach there are probably like not very kind, which is to say things like, hey, some people are just stupider now. People are just kind of not interested in that. And or people are worse at reading, right? Which is probably true. And so criticism is this thing that maybe helps them improve that sort of skill to then use it in other ways, right? But like I could I was very gratified after I lost my job, which is a weird string of words to say, but it happened at a time when like Death Stranding 2 was about to release, and a lot of people were like very excited for the possibility of me writing about Death Stranding 2 again, that was very kind of them. I don't know if I deserve that sort of kindness, but I appreciate it. But at the same time, it's like
review on Kotaku was incredible.
Yeah,
I remember that.
But
one
also,
back
it's
in
at the
day.
same
Also
time
came at a difficult time, which is
but there's limits too.
Yeah,
there's limits too. It's like I could write. Death Stranding 2 is pretty cool. I haven't finished it. I could have, if I had sprinted and maybe I could have written something really great about it that got people to feel feelings, but that's not. Do I know if that's the best use of my time? I don't know. It's hard. It's a complicated question.
Yeah, I often think about criticism now as a way for me to like demonstrate like a couple of things. For me, it is like a political act often. I think about the review that I wrote of the bad Harry Potter game, and it was for me an exercise in untangling J.K. Rowling's relationship to Harry Potter, the corporate forces that want to ensure that Harry Potter remains an profitable an intellectual property, and also the disgusting aspects of her incredibly transphobic politics, where at this point, if you financially contribute at all to Harry Potter, you are directly funding her trying to remove trans rights from trans people all over the world. That is undeniable at this point. And to me, it felt important to sit down and reckon with the idea of Harry Potter and how its relationship to her, you can't get away from it. You can never create a Harry Potter that exists without J.K. Rowling because of the way that she feels about the world. Because in a similar way that she feels about gender, she feels like you can never remove the aspects of her that are in this thing, and she doesn't want you to. That to me felt like just something that I had to do, because so many people very still like casually interact with this, and perhaps they need to sit down and think about, well, my friend's kid loves Harry Potter, but maybe I won't buy the game for him for Christmas, for example. But it also is a way to signal to other people to create community within a scene of artists, right? The very best way to do that, I think, if you are in a community of artists, is to go and see their art and take it seriously. And sometimes that means taking issue with it. Sometimes that means trying to untangle its meaning. Sometimes it means just praising it and praising the things about it that you really like and explaining why you really like them. But it is, in a way, to say to the world, I care about art. And if you're reading this, I hope that you also care about art, which is another sort of aspect of the political aspect of writing criticism, which is just to say to other people, if you read books, good. If you disagree with this in my review, I'm just glad that you fucking read it, man. Like it fucking rocks. And I think that, yes, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think to kind of hone in on a point you were making, signaling that you care about art unto itself kind of, I think, is a little bit different than what people do now, because I think so many people have labeled art as disposable, or like it's become part of
Yes.
the endless stream of content that we're always subsumed in now. And like just talking about something substantively, or like, after maybe like its moment in the spotlight, is kind of different from what a lot of people do now, which I think
Yeah.
also is maybe part of the reason why these publications care less and less about criticism,
Yeah.
because like we're just awash in the sea of constantly changing trends and new things, and to then like take a moment to actually evaluate something on its own terms, or to take a step back from what would be popular at the time and talk about it anyway, like those go against the kind of monetary flow of all of this now. And so they just say like, we can cut that, it's not going to make us money, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, in the publishing industry, for instance, we're talking about places no longer publishing reviews of books. Fewer people buy books than ever before. Like, people
Yeah,
are not reading
you don't got
very
to tell me
much.
twice.
No, I know a couple of people who have published books and who have said, my publisher isn't happy with the sales, predicted sales figures. But it's also true that, like, uh, it's the industry has been in such financial dire straits for so long that we're at the point where, like, you don't get a marketing budget unless you are a very rich writer already. You're expected to do all your marketing on your own on your social media, and then people get
Yeah,
disappointed
don't
in
gotta
you
tell me
for not
twice.
not selling books. It's wacky.
Uh-huh.
And to that end, it's like, if you are a paper that is trying to make a profit and people aren't even buying the things that you're reviewing, they're like, why publish a review of a book? Like, why publish? It would be like publishing a review of a Nickelodeon, like it just doesn't make sense. I mean, I think it makes sense to critically examine Nickelodeons and old silent features and shit like that, but
Man, we
in a
should start doing that
four
on Aftermath.
I mean, that would be sick, right? I really loved your ball and cup review, Nathan.
Thank you.
I'm, I mean, the argument for covering that sort of stuff, especially on the video game argument side of things, is that games are these things that like every culture does, right?
Yeah.
And so it's tricky because um, I think writing is ultimately something the writer does for themselves. I think
Oh,
it kind of
yeah.
has to be. I think it's very nice to think of writing as this service. I think there's a lot of potential traps you can fall in to do that. But I will say that in terms of criticism, at the very least, in this day and age, one thing it does do is it does at least maybe arm people with a skill set, or allow them to practice a skill set that allows them to navigate certain parts of the real world a little bit better, whether that's like
Yeah.
interpersonal things or things like that. Right.
I mean, it
The
can
idea
allow
of
you
being able
to
to, yeah.
it can allow you to more closely hew in on what your own beliefs are. If you
Yes,
read
or
something and gutturally disagree with it, then you will get closer to understanding what you personally believe. You
and you
gain
find
that
ways
facility.
you find ways to be able to express that better, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Coming, s- there's thousands of moments every day where people don't explain themselves well enough. And that's something that, as you engage with art, as you understand yourself a little bit better, as you just understand rhetoric just a little bit better, you find ways to navigate the world in ways that are helpful. And it it doesn't. The thing I was kind of referring to before is that it doesn't manifest in this big like singular political moment the way that some people kind of think it will, but it does manifest in like how somebody might be able to explain a position at a meeting in a job or
Mhm.
something,
Yeah.
because that they've kind of gone through these processes. And then of course also there is the cultural part of it, right? Where it's like, what are you doing? If you're not talking about what a culture is making, how are you're not really talking about
Yeah. You
culture,
know,
right?
Yeah.
yeah. One
Well,
incident I often think of is Jillian Mapes, now at Hearing Things, our friends at Hearing Things. I love them. A music journalist at Pitchfork formerly. She wrote a review of the very critically acclaimed folklore Taylor Swift album. And she wrote a good review, but it was an 8.7 score. And she was receiving harassment, threats to her life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, in what world is it not valuable to actually take the music of one of the most famous musical artists of our current day seriously, especially in a moment where they were turning away from pop music and turning it into something more intimate and what seemed like a turn towards greater maturity of the music. I think it's like if you are not looking at that, if you're not looking at the relationship between, say, the Marvel Cinematic Universe and post 9/11 politics, and American like culture and hegemony and military bite. I feel like we just sort of sleepwalk through our own culture. If we don't take the time to actually sit down and watch 24 and think about what it says about the war on terror, then
Mhm.
we don't understand the things that our culture makes and lauds and sometimes is like
Right.
even ties very literally into our political world.
And
Well, also,
fandom's like the big spoiler to this in the sense that
mm,
it like really flattens the conversation space. And it can
mm,
happen in a lot of different ways too, because like you can still have people who are nominally engaged in what they consider to be critical writing or critical thinking and still engage in fandom in certain ways. I think this came up in the past once when you interviewed me for something, Nathan, where a big concern I have or had walking away from writing for a little while was that there's this period of time where I think there was a cohort of writers who were really talking about materialism, who were really arming people with a lot of leftist terminology. And what fandom does with something like that is that it takes that terminology and
Yeah.
uses it as a way to kind of beat people in line
Yes.
or things like that, right? So is this piece of art, does it meet some
I
sort
think
of ideological metric, or is
yes.
this person
yeah, yep.
behaving in a way that's and that kind of misses the
Yeah, or
forest for
like,
the
does
trees as
this
well, right?
like does this book have a villain in it who's doing bad things? Uh-oh, that means that those are the views of the
Yes.
author. And
Yeah,
it's like,
I
no,
think
no, they're not. That's an insane thing to
a
And we
thing.
suggest.
and we see these sorts of things manifest even now, right? Not to get us off the topic of the day, but also, right, one of the big things that's happening right now still is the problem with payment processors and delisting from
Yep.
stores,
Mhm.
and the
Hmm.
ways in which people talk about games that have sex in them, the way that people
Mhm.
talk about games that have sexual violence in them, perhaps,
Mhm.
or things like that, and um criticism is not the knife that cuts through that, right? There's like way more shit happening that makes those
Yeah.
conversations what they are. But being able to talk about those things seriously is important, because then when you have situations like this pop up, which are like real material situations with consequences, you have people who at least have developed some actual position about them, instead
Yes.
of just
Right.
saying,
Well,
oh, sex
also,
is gross, sex is icky, and
yeah,
therefore I
and the
don't care
ability to
if this
like
thing's happening. Right.
Yeah.
the ability to state those positions with nuance and to have those
Yeah.
discussions with nuance, as opposed to saying like, okay, well, you're on side A or B and that's
Yeah.
it, we're done
Mhm.
talking about something. Or to even like recognize in somebody else that they are not purely on side A or B, that like
Mhm.
even as you're conversing with them in these heated ways, you might actually be closer together in terms of certain elements of how you think about these things than it might initially appear, and to sort of like
Yeah.
allow for that space to exist.
And
I
the
think a
thing that
lot
yeah, go.
sorry. I think a lot about
No.
what fandom had done to the term the Bechdel test, which comes from
Mhm.
Alison Bechdel. It's a joke from Dykes to Watch Out For, which is one of the many comics she's written. And the idea is a character in Dykes to Watch Out For says she won't go see a movie unless there's more than one woman in it and they have a scene together where they talk about something that isn't men. And for a while, this was like understood as a joke. And like the tragedy of the joke is how few movies pass that test. And it isn't an indictment on movies, an indictment. I'm sorry. Someone made fun of me once for saying indictment, and then I started saying it wrong. It is not an indictment on movies that don't pass the test, right? It is just an observation that women do not get to be in popular movies. And if they do, they are often reduced to roles that are subservient to men. I
Right.
do think the general knowledge, as we've both said, of the Bechdel test has helped people understand why more women should be in movies, why there should be more women in film production, why there should be more women in all aspects, cast and crew. Yeah, but I also do think it has led to a situation where in fandom squabbles, just discourse on the internet, people will say, well, I don't want to listen to you because you like all these movies that don't even pass the Bechdel test. And that's
Right.
not
Like it's a
constructive.
purity test again.
Yeah,
Right, and
yeah.
a thing that is at least important about art, and therefore about art criticism, and some people, the trap that people fall into in games wise again is saying games uniquely do this, which is not
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
All art does this, which is that it can allow you to experience not just different perspectives, but things that are also, for instance, unsafe situations. And yet you can experience them safely and you can untangle your feelings with those. And so, one of the reasons why it's important for us to treat art seriously, and speak about it and such, and especially, that it's a bit of a trap word in terms of like what art is or is not transgressive, right? But like, one of the things, again, just because the sex thing, the itch.io thing's on my mind, is like one of the benefits of a certain game or certain games in that genre is that they can allow you to experience certain situations which you would not necessarily normally navigate in real life, and you can do it safely and you can untangle your feelings with that, and that untangling of feelings is important. And so therefore, because that untangling is important, we should do it publicly. We should have people who are able to sit down and go through that process in a way that is visible, that is vulnerable, and invites other people to do the same.
Yeah, it is like
Mhm.
giving people an on-ramp to be able to introspect. It is like being able
Yeah.
to seed people's ideas in people's minds. And I really do think like this is something people make the assumption that when you write criticism, what you want is you're forming an argument, and at the end of the argument, the goal is to get everyone to agree with you. My personal opinion is if you read something of mine and viscerally disagree with it, I still have really done my job, because it is
Yeah.
more about allowing you to understand one perspective and then see whether or not you agree with that perspective. And that is part of untangling those ideas. If you
And
disagree with me, you are already doing the thing that I would hope that you would have done if you read this.
and even like no one has is solid as rock all the way through, right? I would love gotcha games to basically not exist.
Yeah.
I played
Yeah.
Honkai Star Rail last night, right? I was like, a new character? What'd she do?
Yep.
Right? And part of what criticism allows us to do, or writing really in general, review or feature writing or anything like that, allows us to examine that sort of contradiction and tension too, because um, the trap is to think that everything is just like there's this solid consistency, and the answer is no. Most things are saying like 9 different things that are all different, and the people
Right.
who are
Well,
who are
again,
talking about them also have like a bajillion different positions on them.
yeah.
You
And
know,
again, like it goes back to this
yeah,
way that we now converse online, where people tend to look at somebody else who they don't agree with and they're like, oh, well, if you have anything that internally contradicts, you're a hypocrite. And that means you've lost the argument and there's no use talking about this anymore. And it's like, no, everyone is messy and complicated, and we all are internally contradictory. We all
yeah,
have these
and,
like ideas that don't agree with each other, and that's A, just what it is to be human, and B, one of the fun things, even in talking about media or discussing things or taking them apart, is
yeah, and
recognizing those contradictions and being able
it
to
can
think,
never become an
hmm,
excuse. You can't use it as an excuse to be like, I'm messy.
right, right,
Yeah.
Right, like at some
yeah,
point you do
whoopsie,
have to you do have to draw a line. There was a,
yeah,
I don't know if we'll talk about it today, depending on, for folks who are listening in, there's going to be some internet work around my house, so I might disappear. But I'm able to talk about it now just a little bit, which was that, I loved Double Fine. I loved what we did. We were part of Microsoft, and how do I navigate that? And the answer was
Yeah.
I did not fully have the answer for it yet, and I was developing my feelings personally on a day-to-day level. I try and be like a BDS person,
hmm,
but like, you know, everyone is forced into these inherently like painful,
Yeah.
contorted
Yeah.
situations, and
yeah,
either criticism doesn't solve those situations. It does allow us the tools to, like you said, to introspect and find our ways through those conversations.
Yeah.
And figure out, what can I do in the from where I am in this imperfect situation, or with this,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like a problematic fave movie or something. I can't think of one. I don't know.
mean-
I like Cloud Atlas. There's some weird stuff going on in Cloud
that's
Atlas.
some really
Yeah.
weird stuff going on.
Yeah,
Right,
it's a
like,
weird movie.
but also I think like that's the thing I take seriously. But also there's probably me going like, oh, you tried a couple things with race here that you
Didn't
you
really
probably
work
shouldn't
out.
have. Sorry,
No,
Lana.
and you
Like,
should have known that you shouldn't have.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Which
and
one's
and
first
that's
Grampy? I also think was a mistake, but not for
yes.
problematic reasons, just for
and
being bad.
that's a smaller manifestation of more pressing and important actual real social contradictions, right?
It's like, how do you live in America? We're all American citizens. How do you live in America without looking at the political actions that our government takes and feeling
Right.
not feeling disgusted? Yeah, and yet
Yeah.
I love it here, right? I have thought
Right.
so much about where I would rather like to live other than New York City. There's very few answers to that question. There's
Yeah.
very
Now, in
few
fairness,
places
New York
that I
City
could live.
is
Yeah.
its own country. New York City is not in America.
Yeah.
It's
I
different.
And you
salute
do-
our new president, Zohran Mamdani.
Zohran Mamdani.
Yes, me too.
We do, and you do find those lines, and you can find those lines as a critic even.
Yeah.
There have been people who I'm sure respected me, whose respect I have lost because I said, I don't think you should have written about this. There's, this is a different thing, but I'm job hunting right now. There are more and more jobs that are saying, hey, what's your experience with ChatGPT? What's your experience with prompt engineering? Sorry, I'm not working for you. I simply cannot.
Yeah.
Good.
There's on the gotcha thing again, there's some people who really insisted, I think, upon like the validity of those games in a way that I simply could not do. And
Yeah,
whether
I
or not
remember
that's fine. And everybody has those limits. And the tricky thing as a critic then is finding those things and knowing where your limits are, and trusting hopefully that other people can explore those spaces that maybe you're not willing to go, or maybe they eventually see it your way and say, actually, let's not do this. Right? There's a lot of trust in the process.
Yeah.
With all of this in mind, I have kind of a larger question, which is that, we've been talking a lot about fandom and the way that people discuss things online and the sort of flattening of a bunch of different ideas that could be considered like attempts at criticism, but then mostly turn into like arguments and things like that, or policing people for various.
I think it's bad.
Yeah, but the larger question is, okay, so we have that on one hand, and that seems to be kind of like where a lot of these discussions happen now. And then we have publications kind of ceding that ground and basically saying like, the traditional notion of a critic is something that we're no longer interested in. And as a result, like you could say potentially that the idea of like being a career critic or whatever sort of goes away or becomes something you can only do on YouTube or whatever. What are your feelings on that kind of dynamic shift on that?
I mean, it's wrong, right? I mean, not to
saying, like, we're done with that.
It's wrong in the sense that like, anybody can call themselves a critic in the same way that anybody can say that they're a journalist.
Yes.
And the answer is no, you fucking aren't. And that's mean, and that's a mean thing to say. And that's not a question of their intentions. That's not a question of their intentions. It's a question of their ability.
Yes.
Right. Which is not like a popular sentiment to share. But the reason that like, newspapers have people who are critics is because it is a talent that you develop just like anything else, the same way that, people who say, I'm a journalist, and just put breaking in front of all their tweets or something. That's not the same as being a reporter, right?
Or whatever.
There are processes, there's a body of knowledge that you have. There's a tradition that you are connected to. There are standards which you hold yourself to. And it's cool. And I think it is often very good that like someone can jump on YouTube and make like 2 hours of something that is incredibly personal and moving, and it's right there. And in some ways, there's no barrier to entry. Anyone could do it. But also it's like the reason that you have positions at outlets or newspapers, and the reason why getting rid of them is bad is because you're ceding that process to people who do not have experience or training or standards.
I'll be very frank. When I was working at Vice, I shifted pretty hard into criticism into a form I really enjoy, which was I wrote the Joss Whedon thing and then the Aaron Sorkin thing. And I literally could not have written those things without Tim Marchman. Marchman, who really encouraged, like, he gave me
I miss
so many
him. I
tools.
love
I love
Marchman.
Marchman so much. Sorry, I was texting him the other day, and it made me miss him a lot.
Yeah.
Him and his weird tin fish obsession. He gave me a lot of tools and like provided me with things to read. He told me ways to approach these questions that I was trying to answer that I couldn't have found on my own. And even just the process of like getting on the phone with him and being like, I'm thinking XYZ. And he's like, have you tried ABC? Those things helped me get my wheels turning in ways that I could not have done without him. Criticism often is like for me a collaborative process, even if I'm just like getting up and going to my husband in the other room and saying I can't figure out how to do this transition from one paragraph to the other. Can you help me try to understand what I'm trying to say here? It is not, I know I could not be someone who gets on YouTube and talks for 3 hours about a movie. I need an editor. I do need an editor. I need someone to help put guardrails on my arguments so I don't fly off into random tangents. There are people on YouTube that I think do great jobs of criticism. I just watched a literally 7-hour video about Midsommar and all of the symbolism in it. And the person who made the video, Novum, went so far as to reach out to actors on the film and production designers and et cetera, et cetera. So really robust
Well,
attempt to actually look at the work and think about meaning and also think about how these symbols come together and create new meanings out of them. That's possible, but you can
mm,
see and tell that this person comes from a tradition of talking and thinking about art in that way. And that kind of video is surrounded by other videos that are just like Midsommar ending explained, which is
Yes.
right,
like
right.
that kind of stuff.
And
Which surrounded
it's
by,
hard.
you could even say like
Yeah.
that's probably the majority now. That's the
Yeah.
main form of discourse around these types of media, whether it is games, books, movies, film, whatever else. And then as an outlier, you have people, really digging into something and trying to talk about specifically themes and the ideas that, it's trying to explore. Which, I think is often the point when an artist creates something. They're like, yeah, I want to explore
Yeah, it's the whole conversation
idea.
about whether like
And
why the
everyone else is
curtains are
like,
blue.
okay, but what about the fact that there's a plot hole here, or like, the lore doesn't add up in this place and that place? And it's
Or
like,
literally
it's not
even
why somebody
dumber,
made
it's
this, but
just like
okay.
what happened, right? Like a lot of these videos are like, what was the sequence of events I just watched? And for me, because I'm a snob,
Right.
my answer is like you can use your own brain to figure that out. You don't
Yeah.
need
It's the
someone to
plot section
explain
of
to you.
Wikipedia.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
you can even fucking Google it, right? Like it feels to me like you can see the lack of facility here. And and like now of course a lot of those blah 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 ending explained videos, it's AI slop. AI voiceover and GPT
Mm-hmm.
script put together with algorithmic editing of random clips from the film. And that is worrying to me because it's not just about lack of media literacy, although I know that's like a popular conversation topic these days. It is just even about like a lack of curiosity, like not wanting to do the thinking for yourself, but wanting something else to do the thinking for you. It is the thing that really concerns me about widespread use of ChatGPT is wanting a machine to do your thinking for you. And I can understand in a
Mm-hmm.
world where we are so beaten down by work and school, right? Like it's hard for me to get mad at a teenager for using ChatGPT to write an essay when I know that they probably have several extracurriculars to go to college, and then they are also doing so
Yeah.
much. I was doing so much homework in school that I regularly went to bed after midnight
Well,
to
also,
get
and they're
up
just
for a
like,
7 a.m.
they, yeah,
Yeah.
and they're being taught in ways that are fundamentally uninteresting. They're being taught to
Yes.
memorize a bunch of facts and figures as opposed to understanding why these things mattered, or like underlying frameworks, or just why the world is the way that it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course they're going to be like kids aren't stupid, and they can tell that those things don't really matter. And so like, yeah,
Yeah.
if a machine can do it for me, of course I'm just going to let it because I don't want to be here. I have better things to be doing with my time.
Yeah, and then that ends up being the way that you process all things because you've never taught to follow your own curiosity, to try to find
Hmm.
answers on your own. Like one of the reasons why I like writing criticism and I like journalism is because I'm deeply curious. Like I am always trying to chase deeper understanding and answer questions that I have. I literally, okay, this is a really absurd thing I've been doing. I was trying to figure out what might happen in the 2 upcoming MCU films, because I have a journalistic fascination with this cinematic project because it has changed Hollywood and cinema as an industry forever. And it is interesting to me that these movies are in decline when after a 10-year period where they were the most profitable pieces of media basically on the planet. So I have now read uh hundreds of comics from like 2015 to 2016 because I was able to put together some plot points and realize which comic arc that they were lifting from. And I've now recognized that the next thing that's going to happen, based on what I've read, is that they're going to soft reboot the MCU and probably recast some people because the comic book arcs have gotten more convoluted. And this is, of course, the exact thing that happens in comics all the time, that the continuity becomes so convoluted that you have to reboot everything so that new readers can join
Yeah,
in and
you
there's
could
new
make
story
something called
opportunities.
the New 52, and then there could be
Oh
like
my
a
God.
podcast about it. I don't know what that would look like though.
I know, it's crazy, right? No, it is.
Yeah,
Those are questions that I cannot just look at a piece of media and just absorb it. Although I've been trying to do that more recently, just to enjoy things. Um, but it is difficult for me to have a question and not want to answer it. And we just don't
yeah.
live in a world where people have the freedom or tools to do that very, very frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds almost pithy to say criticism's kind of a luxury.
Yeah.
It is,
To
though,
be able to engage in that sort of thing. That's one of the reasons why you keep it at an institution, right? So when you see it going away, it's yes, it's a luxury, but it is also not a luxury. If you have spaces that have these traditions built into them, especially also depending on the targets that you're picking, having institutions that have weight around them that offer you the security to poke and prod at those targets, that's important too. Um, and so seeing that a retreat from that space, or a retreat from that sort of writing in certain places, it sounds dramatic to say, even as I just said, it's a luxury, but it also is. There's a certain degree of like dereliction of duty, right? Like, what do you want for your readers? And the nature of what a website is, whether that's in
Yeah.
games or the nature of what a news publication is these days, has
Yeah.
like just fundamentally shifted in ways that I don't know we were even prepared for like 5 years ago, right?
No,
Oh, we
I
super weren't.
completely agree
I
with you
could never
there.
predicted this 5 years ago. No,
No.
in chat, let's see. Somebody said a moment ago. Wait, I gotta pull this up. Yeah, somebody said it feels like we're aware of the fact that we're entering, or that we're on the precipice of a slopper content world, and we're collectively trying to navigate it culturally and legally. And that is what it feels like. Is that the building blocks were kind of beginning to be in place for this several years ago, but now we're seeing what it will actually look like.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
is this world of like, instead of examining things closely or critically, it's all just like, you said redefining news websites. They're
Yeah.
all just like taking a bunch of drama slop or a bunch of other stuff, like things that fundamentally don't matter, and just throwing up as many of those as possible. Same with like reviews and other things that could be considered criticism. Instead, it's just
Hmm.
like, really basic outlines of what a game is and should you buy it or not.
Yeah.
Like it's all insubstantial and it's all meant to be, because the point is just to keep it all moving and to
Yeah.
ensure that people never look
Yeah.
away, because there's always something new for them, something shiny for
You
them
can
to
see the
look at.
timeline of how it gets here. You start with the 24-hour news cycle. I mean, you start with what is it? Jeff Buckley, not Jeff Buckley, he is in a band. William F. Buckley and Gore Vidal arguing with each other on a news broadcast. And then you get to the 24-hour news cycle, and then you get to Crossfire, and then you get to the internet intensifying these news cycles, making it so that each hour, each minute is its own micro news cycle, right? We have stories
Hmm.
break and then be resolved within a matter of hours, which is just something that's never really existed in this frequency. And then there's just like an infinite capacity for new content because there is potentially infinite capacity to sell ads against that new content. And where does
Hmm.
something thoughtful and slow that encourages you to sit and think fit within that cycle? Well, it doesn't really, it's
It fits on aftermath.site, where you can read about the urban design of Cyberpunk 2077 right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
Anyway,
it's all
subscribe today. Only
yeah.
$10 or $7. Aftermath.site/products.
All the like language learning stuff and things like that, it does lead to a crisis point. I don't know what that looks like entirely, but there is a moment where the center can't hold, I think. Partially
Mhm.
just when the bubble of the tech burst, right? And there's not as much money in it anymore.
Mhm.
But also like, you know, at some point is there like an intense enough legality question that pops up that challenges thing. But also it's like, I think I've said a lot of things today that maybe people would characterize as cynical, but I like to think that the audience is generally smart and can tell the difference
Yeah.
between like something that somebody's doing. It's like, you know, it's there's a reason why having these positions is important. There's a reason why having somebody who has like a long tenure is important. It's there's kind of like a Marlo Stanfield, like my name is my name. Like it matters to have a person there. It matters to have a name there attached to it that you can trust. And so I think these things go away, um, and I wonder whether or not like that leads to its own kind of crisis insofar as like the audience eventually realizes that they're not having this service performed for them anymore, and
Yeah.
does that manifest in anything?
I
It's
mean,
hard to
I
know.
I think we are seeing the beginnings of the opposite reaction manifesting in some ways. The popularity of the newsletter, I don't think would have happened if
Yeah.
mainstream journalism was not breaking down in these particular ways. Now there is a
Mhm.
smorgasbord of independent publications that are delivering to you film criticism, music
Yes.
writing. I love this newsletter hell welcome to hell world that is
Yes.
basically hard news. It's out there, and if you can
Yeah.
find it if you want it. Is it as powerful and influential as the biggest papers in the world? No, but I
No.
also think that the machine of capitalism will eventually, frankly, just chase where the money goes. I do think there is diminishing returns on news as a for-profit industry, and I think we're beginning to see that ceiling really
I was also
crushing down on it.
Yeah, the thing I was gonna hop on there too is like how, you know, there are things that in our lives that we would have considered institutions, um,
Right.
and the value of their names and the value of those bylines have just plummeted. And it's not
Mhm.
because of anything other than abandoning those certain standards or kind of embracing these newer models of writing and production, right? And so you see that in the diminishment of not just subscriber numbers, which is the thing that people only care about, but the way that people talk about places like the New York Times or the Washington Post or something. They just don't
Right.
have they don't have
There was
it
once
the
kind
same
of
way that
like
they did
respect.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah, or there was respect and reverence, and now there's much more understanding of the flaws of those places, which that part
Yeah.
Yes.
is, beneficial in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, like because you also just have the natural churn of human beings. A lot of people who used to read those publications are old or have died. There are a lot of younger people who never even came up with them in their general orbit,
Yeah.
except for somebody occasionally name dropping them. So they're like, I've heard of
Mhm.
that, but have I ever actually spent substantive time with it? No, it doesn't really matter to me. I watch YouTubers.
Yeah.
It's that kind of a thing, and like
YouTubers
that's
who are
to an extent natural.
summarizing the journalism that exists and the criticism that
Yes,
exists
on the
within these
on the
publications,
publications.
which has always
Yes, in
been the
fairness,
most
it does.
frustrating thing to me. God, I was watching a YouTuber one time and she was making a video I thought was okay. And then
Mm.
she showed a screenshot of like an archive.is uh, 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 link to like a Vulture article and the caption, "Why would I ever pay for this?" And I wanted to reach to the screen and just shake her. It's like, we need the money. Like people need to feed themselves. But it's
Yep.
like when you get this stuff for free, how can you convince someone to pay for it? Right? Like
Yeah.
the Substack thing to a certain extent works because it is parasocial and personality based. When you're signing
Yeah.
up for Ashley Reese's Bad Brains newsletter, it is at least partially because you are a fan of Ashley Reese and the way that she thinks about things and you
But
follow
also
her on social
the
media?
Yeah, and the economics of it are more beneficial for the people who are like making those newsletters,
Yes.
or in our case, like writing for the website. In that
Yeah.
it's generally known that like most of or all of the money goes to that person, as opposed to if you subscribe to even something like Vulture or especially like the Washington Post, the New York Times, a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of
Yeah.
that goes to the writer you like.
Yeah.
It barely
Yeah.
matters at that point.
It's like what's
Yeah.
so frustrating about game prices rising is that you know that this is for the benefit of the people at the very top and not the people who
Right.
are contract workers that their contracts end before the game is finished developing and then their names don't even get in the credits. You know, like that kind of stuff makes people feel incredibly frustrated and very cynical, I think, rightly, about whether or not you should invest in those institutions at all in the first place.
Yeah, it's so interesting
Yeah.
how we're alienated from capital and from the means of production and all of
Whoa,
that
from each
stuff.
other.
What?
Yeah.
I
Whoa,
didn't know
that's
that was
wacky.
possible. That's crazy.
Yeah.
What
But
if
I can
we
still
But it's
buy
not
marketable
intentional. I'm
plushies
sure.
of all my favorite characters. Isn't that great?
Oh
Look
my
at all my
God.
action
Yeah.
I
figures.
love Pochita. Have you
Yeah,
seen
Pochita
the
is
recent
great.
chapters of Chainsaw Man, by the way?
Yeah.
Yo, he's
Yeah,
mad.
it's good. It's good.
It's
I
really intense.
stopped after part 1, so no spoilers,
Yes.
please, because I do
No,
Part
plan
two,
to dive back
part
in
two
after
goes
part 2
wild.
ends.
I
Yeah.
had some
Yeah.
doubts. I had some doubts about part 2, and then we got a couple things recently where I went, okay.
I'm not
Great.
even caught up.
Got it.
I saw like 1 or 2 panels out of context, and I was like, oh, thank
Yeah.
God. You know?
Yeah.
Also,
Anyway, here's my
I'll get back into it after I finish or after I catch up on One Piece. So I will read part 2 of Chainsaw Man
You're
in
never
40
catching
years.
up on One Piece. What are you talking about?
I've made good progress this year.
Wait,
I'm on
what
like chapter
chapter?
600 out of 1,200 or so.
Congratulations.
About halfway through. Great job.
Yeah.
God, you know, I'm lucky that everything in American comics gets canceled after 1 arc. You know?
Right?
That's
It's
just
so
the
nice.
business. It's really nice. But it is just we live in a different world, and I have difficulty, I think, adjusting to the values of this new world we're emerging into sometimes. And I know, like, I have to remind myself frequently that my perspective is in the minority and I am doing something because I believe it's important, but also that doesn't mean that anything I do will change anything.
It's a weird thing.
It's weird. It is a luxury and it is vanity, but it is also like part of my deeply held convictions and my values that I do believe it is important for me to sit down and write about the culture that we produce and what it
I-
says about us.
I'm in my Death Stranding 2 period where it's like that first game is like, we should all connect. It'll be great. And now it's like, should we have connected?
You're
And I'm kind of
connected.
there.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of there
kind of there.
too.
Oh, I mean, I'm like, yeah, I think even a few years ago it would have been like, well, you know, the internet has done some good for us and it gave me my career, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm like, oh no, we should abolish it. It was a bad
Yeah.
idea. We
It's
fucked
hard to
up.
know. It's hard to know. It's like, there's nothing I want to do more than write. But first off, I'm slower. I'm just slower now because I haven't done as
Absolutely.
much of it. But also, it's
Yeah.
like I remember leaving the field for a little bit, and I remember people who were genuinely mad at me, and it's like, on the one hand, that's flattering, and that's nice, and it means that I was producing something that maybe some people cared about. But it's also like, you're not entitled to me. That's the other complicated part about being out there as a writer or critic or anything too, right? Is that like, you want to do the work because it's in your bones, and then some people want you to do the work either for them.
Right. They're like, where's your
or-
piece about blank? Where's your thing
Or they-
about this? Like,
Or
I
they
need
want
your
you to do the
thoughts.
work in a way that validates a position
Yeah.
they already hold, which is
Right,
not the fucking job. It simply is not the job. This
I know
was
that a lot of readers
it's
have
crazy.
asked me whether or not I'm going to write a review of Superman, and there is something eventually I do want to write about Superman that the movie made me think about, but it is also the process is the process, right? I can only do it in the way that suits my particular style of writing. And when I joined up with Aftermath, I was already really, really burned out from having to hypercharge that process as much as humanly possible to meet the needs of a machine that was running 24 hours a day. And that really broke my brain. And it's just like, I now that I own the work and I own the company, I feel like I have the luxury to do it in the exact way that I want to, right? Like, I am going to be writing about the Eidos Montreal Guardians of the Galaxy game, and you are going to fucking like it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's one of those
Too.
complicated things because the way that people consume media is definitely different too. Even the people who are like locked in, right? Like some people, they also think that just participating with media itself is activism or something, right? They say
Yes.
I watched Andor, therefore I'm a good leftist.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that
Praxis.
doesn't do anything at all, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
People
it gives
that's
Disney
another
money.
complicated piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, people get mad at me when I say that it's difficult to say, or I do not think it is accurate to say that Andor is a leftist show, because when you look at the values of being on the left, being politically leftist, you have to also acknowledge how destructive Hollywood is as a system to the people that work within it, and especially Disney, like more so than other Hollywood studios. It is the worst at the extractive capitalist politics that,
And
like,
I mean, military industrial complex, the network is bad.
yeah,
That's crazy.
or just basically the copyright stuff. The way that is just completely destroyed copyright law makes me angry on a daily basis. And so you have to acknowledge that,
Yep.
like, even though the show is inspiring to you, it comes from a company that is completely spineless and also feeds, like, takes money from the DOD. Like, you have
It's all
to
messy
acknowledge
and
these
weird.
things.
I was recently first time ever watching through The West Wing, and I was vibing with it for a while, and then it definitely got to the point where I was like, oh, 9/11 happened in real
Yeah.
life. It's here, and things are different, and
Oh my
they're like,
God.
I don't know, Jed Bartlett's got to make the tough decision of assassinating this guy, and I'm like, I don't think he should be assassinating that guy.
I don't think he should be
That seems not
assassinated.
great.
Let's
You know.
just not, I was rereading. I was, again, like, reading hundreds of comics now, trying to understand. This will eventually come out of my body in writing in some form, but I have to just go through the process, right? I was rereading all the Ultimate comics, Ultimate Marvel comics, and you
Yes.
read the Ultimates, and it is such a post 9/11 book. It is
Yes.
so wrapped up in the war on terror. It's fascinating, but it is also like a horrible vision of what's to come, because that becomes the baseline for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So now you have this comic universe that is completely tied into the US government and has to be taught with using, because they're using the money, those scripts have to be approved by the US government. And I'm sure they didn't meddle much, but their hand is in the pot, right? It's wild.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, there's just a broader endorsement of the idea that the US government and the military industrial complex can be good things. Not
Like,
even on a
there's a
movie by movie
CIA
basis that
agent
they
in
are,
Black
but that
Panther.
the notion of this default, they're like, no, these can be ultimately used for good. So, you just got to keep pushing them in the right direction.
It's really
That CIA
Obama era
agent,
filmmaking in a big way.
that CIA agent though, he's such a rascal. He's such a rascally little guy.
CIA agent, he's just a small little birthday boy.
He's one of ours. West Wing does that too. Suddenly, one of the main cast is a CIA person, and you're like,
Oh, one of my favorite things. My favorite things about West Wing is that he invents a respectable Republican. He, like, invents a blonde Republican lady who's really sexy and
It's all
believes in
good.
women's
It's
rights,
crazy.
but she loves America. She just loves America a little bit differently than you guys, and who can you really
No.
judge her for that?
We all love
Loves America a
America the
little
same way.
different.
We all love justice or whatever. I don't know.
Sorry to my good friend Aaron Sorkin. Did I tell you guys he emailed me? Anyway, I'll
Josh
tell you guys
Lyman.
outside.
Josh Lyman
wait.
is a little weasel man
Wait,
who I would beat the
Aaron
shit out
Sorkin
of.
emailed
That's so
you?
true. After I wrote that piece of criticism about him, he emailed me from his personal email address.
What did he say?
He was like, I take one issue with the thing you wrote about me, but you are a thunderous writer.
He wrote.
Whoa, that's
He wrote it
wild.
very
At
fast
first I
and
thought you-
snappy.
Yeah, he was walking while he was doing
It was
it.
a
Yeah.
snappy
He said, I
email.
took one issue, and then he delivered like a 4-minute monologue.
Yeah, about how my work is like delivering the rights of the American people, blah 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 blah. Yeah, no, he was really nice to me. He's such a boomer that it really makes sense. Boomers are all about respectful disagreement, except if you don't want them to cut you in line or something. Anyway, that was my Aaron Sorkin story.
We should get Aaron Sorkin on Aftermath Hours.
Could do it.
Yeah, we should get him on the show. Aaron
He's
Sorkin,
busy.
come on Aftermath Hours.
Aaron
I doubt
Sorkin,
it.
don't make me email you again.
Do you guys ever break a story and then look at each other and go like,
Yeah.
we reported the news?
No, but
We
now I'm
reported
going
the
to do
news."
that every day.
Sir, we have the honor of telling you that our brave armed forces shot Mario.
Obama comes out. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. DOD, we got him.
Yeah, shot the Mushroom Kingdom's foremost terrorist, Mario.
Because of course America would be on the side of Bowser.
It's true.
It's just true. I'm sorry. He's just trying to
Oh yeah, with
take his
that.
ancestral lands of the Mushroom Kingdom.
He's a
That's
small business owner or whatever. I don't know.
I mean, well, he's only small until he eats the mushroom. Then he becomes a
a
mid-sized
large,
business owner.
large business owner.
It's your big business owner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you can also become a Tanuki business owner, a cape-wearing business owner. I could go on, but I shouldn't. Instead, we should quickly change topics over to the other thing that I wanted to discuss briefly, which is that I think the kind of biggest news, at least in our corner of the internet of the week, is that, and this sort of ties back to, I think, a lot of what we were discussing in terms of criticism and sort of talking about, the real world impact that a lot of these pieces of media have, which is that Arcane, or rather the unionized members of Arcane, which is a French studio, it's under the Microsoft umbrella, made games like Dishonored, put out a statement this week basically calling out Microsoft for its involvement with Israel, specifically via Azure Cloud Tech and AI, and using it to surveil Palestinians and even like potentially carry out like missile strikes against them and stuff like that. And so Arcane took a very like full-throated stance of, divest from this shit immediately, disclose any ties that you have to the Israeli government or military. Like we're calling for, an immediate and permanent ceasefire, like all this stuff, throwing in with BDS specifically, as well as another group within Microsoft that's against using Azure for apartheid. And yeah, it was this moment of, I think it was at least somewhat surprised we haven't really seen any game developers within Microsoft do that. Again, there's a group of tech workers within Microsoft that has done something like that. No Azure for Apartheid, that's what it's called.
They have the No Azure for Apartheid group, or for Palestine group, has interrupted keynote speeches. They have been very disruptive in their activism. I'm not sure if it's making an impact, but I am really pleased to see Arcane make this statement, because I think this is one of the, I think in order to pressure a corporation as large as Microsoft, you have to attack on multiple fronts. And there is a consumer boycott going on. I know that I have complicated feelings about consumer boycotts, and they're just not worth getting into, frankly. But I see that often used as the only tactic, and it's not as effective as being pushed from multiple sides. And I hope that this leads to more statements from more Microsoft-owned developers, because once that floodgate opens, then, and especially if this remains in the news, hopefully the C-suite will see it as financially disruptive, let's say. Because that's the only way you can convince corporate overlords to do anything, is to convince them that this will affect their bottom line. Like, the one thing about games at Microsoft is that we are able to see their financial statements. Gaming is in the top 3 of the financial movers for Microsoft, but it is a distant third. It is distant in such a way where they could cut that loose and not really see much of an effect to their profits year over year. That means that the pressure you get from boycotting, they'll just reinvest into the exact things that actively harm people. I do think it is always noble to, I love BDS, and I think that they have seen a lot of incredible success, which has been really exciting. But I do think like Microsoft is just so pervasive and so huge that I am so glad to see people at developers that are owned by them saying, we hate this. Like, stop doing this. You disgust us.
Yeah. Obviously there's a lot I cannot say. But a one key takeaway
so now we go to our former Microsoft employee correspondent, Harper J.
I will say that a takeaway to have here is that this is something that happens when you do have proper organization with workers. This isn't something that happens without a union presence.
Yes.
For a variety of different reasons, the least of which being it's just a matter of leverage, right? And so maybe you see other groups within Microsoft follow through with this. There's organized workers, like at
Man, there are a lot of
ZeniMax
unions
and
in
things
there
like
now.
that, for instance.
Yeah.
Right, and that was partially sped along, at least by the fact that for a time, I think it's still the case there. Microsoft was doing voluntary recognition for unions, which that's good.
Yeah, they have their
Certainly,
neutrality agreement, is how they put it. Like the notion
yes.
that if anybody like organizes or seems to be, they're not going to go after them or union bust in the ways that you would see at many other companies, or even as you did see at Activision before they became part of Microsoft.
Yes,
Yeah.
but certainly the presence of a union, the presence of that sort of collective makes things much easier to act on. Part of what I
Mhm.
did when I was at Double Fine was most public-facing statements flowed through me and my boss. A lot of what I did was a lot of like writing language for certain things. And so there were moments where us, Double Fine as a studio would speak out, for instance, um, one thing I did while I was there is I worked very carefully with the studio to write what I thought was a sufficient statement during like the George Floyd protest, where I think some people probably pulled their punches a little. Um, that's cool, and you can do that. That has its own complications as a process when you're working at a large corporate body like this, but uh, that degree of complication gets easier to cut through if you have like an actual union presence that can just make that sort of statement independently on their own, which is kind of what Arcane did. This was Arcane in France, correct? Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, through
And I
STJV,
was gonna
which
say
is a
they have
major
such
French
a
union that represents a lot of game studios, including Don't Nod as well.
yeah. I was gonna say they have a lot of ease of movement in terms of what they can accomplish there, labor wise, in France in particular, which
Yeah.
helps as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think labor
But even
unions,
like,
yeah. No, it just gives you a place where you talk
even
about these issues, right? Like you make plans and then
yeah,
you are also be able to speak collectively. It is,
yeah, you make
it's
plans in a
interesting.
way too, where like, getting together enough people to make a statement like that and organizing it such that they all agreed and like had this kind of, I guess, shield of we are part of this group as opposed to, there are a bunch of individuals you can identify and go after. Like all these things
Yes.
add up to them being able to make a statement like this. Whereas if you just had like a loosely affiliated group of workers, that would fall apart immediately. Just even like agreeing on the language or like having a organized means by which you vote on these things and discuss like, okay, do we approve of this? Do we not? First, you'd have to build all of that up. And then eventually you could maybe make a statement like this. But at that point, you've just made a union. So just make a union.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not to say like, this is not to wave a magic wand and say silence is fine. If right, like if unless you have this specific criteria, unless you're in a union or whatever, but that's a personal decision ultimately. Whereas what you can do here, if you do have a level of organization, is to raise up that position with a lot more, uh, elbow attached to it, a little bit of implicit
Yeah, it is like the
threat in
first.
there as well, a
Yeah,
little bit.
when you make a statement that is like, think about the escalation chart. We all know the
Mhm.
escalation chart. You start here because the top of that chart is strike. You start there at the
Mhm.
bottom, which is making a statement. And then that statement might include demands in it or an ask. And if that
Yes.
ask isn't met, you go to the next step and then the next step and then the next step because there is this implicit threat, which is that once we run out of ways to ask politely or not so politely, we will try to make your company lose money. And that's what a strike is.
Right.
I will say
Yeah.
on the labor
Strike or,
side
or
of
stoppage or
things,
whatever.
I was gonna say this is definitely like I don't think this is a chief thing that you can organize around necessarily, but it can draw people into that
Mhm.
process too, right? The things that you get people on board with a union for if you're organizing is like maternal leave or something, right? It's a lot more
Yeah.
personal, but this is also
Mhm.
useful just as a visible example, um, certainly to anybody who's considering organizing or curious about like what that process looks like, to be able to say, hey, here's another example of what a union can do, right?
Yes. Yeah. If
If
you
you
all,
feel as a person unable to speak, this might be a way to
you
allow
could,
you to be able to speak.
yeah, it can give
Right.
you a
It's a
voice, it can
megaphone.
amplify your voice. Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, even
Yeah.
just the act of let's all get together after work and talk about what we find frustrating about work. And that might include, I'm frustrated with the larger political goals of the company that we work for.
How much are you making?
Yeah, exactly. Talk
How
about
much
your
are you
salary.
making?
Also that.
Yeah,
Right? Exactly.
exactly. Yeah,
Hmm.
it is really,
Yeah.
really helpful just to get to know your coworkers, because at the end of the day, there's more people that are doing the labor than there are in the C-suite. Like it's just a numbers game.
Mhm.
You know, when you speak collectively, you do just have more weight.
Yeah. Which ties back to, and again, I don't want to like dig too much into this because I'm sure there's not a ton you can say, but like Harper, you were going into this a little bit earlier. You were saying like, just the general feelings of like being conflicted while working at Microsoft because you
Yeah,
generally
and
adhere to like, BDS and stuff like that. And so, I
again,
mean, how
that's a
did that sort
personal
of,
thing on my part, right? I was in a position at a company where, and this is true pretty much of anybody in a company in general, where your speech can be construed as the speech of the company itself. I was
Mhm.
chiefly in a position of that because my position at Double Fine was to function largely as one of their primary communicators. Um, I I just kept my personal beliefs relatively private. That was a decision on my part, and it's hard to navigate that. Where, I love Double Fine. Wish I was there right now. I love all those people there. But it is, it is part of a larger entity which is involved in a variety of different things, and that's hard to navigate. And I don't have much I can say. I don't have much solution for how to navigate that, other than for each individual person to kind of know where their lines are, right?
Yeah,
Um,
when I was at Vice, the company, the C-suite took money from the Saudi Arabian government, and they
mhm.
didn't tell the union, and that made us all pretty mad,
Right.
right?
And
Like, we didn't love
that's
that.
something that's a different sort of thing you see in video games right now even. I think today is the second day of the Esports World Cup, which I think is in
Mhm.
Riyadh. And there's plenty of people who are going there in the FGC to, play Tekken or whatever, and there's some people who, they don't go. But also it's
Mhm.
like that's a lot of money on the line. You could play City of the Wolves, Fatal Fury, and win like $2 million. And so like, I would maybe don't go, but also if you go, I understand why you went. I get
It's
it.
like hard for me to be. I look at the world and I look at my bank account, and it's like hard for me to be mad. It's just
I know.
like, do what you got to do. I know where my line is, but I can't. You
yeah,
can't dictate to
that,
someone else where their line should be. You can only make an argument for why you believe something. I
Yeah,
don't
and
think you win people over with shame, unfortunately.
I think more and more people are getting comfortable with kind of expressing their thoughts and feelings on these sorts of things, which is good
I
within
think
the
that's
industry
good.
and without.
yeah, I hope so.
Yeah,
Because
yeah. Yeah.
think the thing that like, I think the thing that like Saudi Arabia and hosting something like the EU Cup hopes for is this slow acceptance kind of along these lines. Like, well, you got to beat your bag, and so I guess it's all right. And so then over time, more high-profile players attend and compete. And like now, actually, I got a press release about this like a week ago. Hideo Kojima is going to talk at a related event, like all of these things. And then that just becomes, like the ultimate goal of sports washing is
Yeah.
that 5 years later, nobody even discusses anymore the fact that this is problematic or that,
I mean,
it's
it to
basically a
me.
blanket over the crimes of an administration.
Yeah, I mean, look at Eurovision, for example. Eurovision was able to kick out the Eurovision Council. They kicked out Russia when Russia invaded Ukraine. And this was seen as a very easy choice to make because they were attacking another country that competes in Eurovision, right? Israel has not received the same response. And in fact, two of the big five countries that contribute the most money to putting on Eurovision, a very expensive broadcast event, um, Italy and Germany said that they would also leave Eurovision if Israel was disqualified. So you see, though, like the goal of being a part of these cultural moments is that they can legitimize the acts of their countries. Like you can go to a Eurovision concert and say wave an Israeli flag and say, "Oh, but it's just because I support their song." And that is uncomfortable, which is why I think it is important, as you said, Harper, that more and more people are being able to voice their opinions on these things, that they're taking these stands. I do think that it's hard to win people over with shame. People really react pretty viscerally with shame, but you do have to say, frankly, like, I do not want to go to Saudi Arabia because of the human rights violations, and that's why.
Yeah, and again, you know where your lines are speaking to, for it's like, uh, I I was working at Microsoft. No one needed to hear my opinion on the matter,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
there are
Also
other
that.
people. There are other people more qualified. There are other people who are in better positions, more, possibly even quote more correct positions to do that. Um, but I do think there's one of the things that happens in the last 7 years or so, especially in the games industry, especially on devs, is that there's a much greater sense of um, how games intersect with tech and other things in the world a whole lot more, because it's just harder to ignore. If you're making something for Xbox in 2003, this kind of stuff, maybe Microsoft is doing something, but it's not as clearly visible. And that's just a product of the internet growing over time as well, where like we are aware of more things, and this has allowed workers to have these moments of reckoning and kind of decide what to do each individually, or in the case of Arcane and their union here, collectively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to transition to our final segment, which is our
Ooh.
mailbag, where readers can ask us questions about pretty much whatever they want to. If you would like to participate in the mailbag, by the way, you can do so by subscribing to aftermath.site at aftermath.site/products. Then you get access to the Discord, which is where people ask questions, and it's a grand old time. So, with that said, it's time for some questions. From Hero, we've talked about putting the PC on the desk and the floor. But what about Frankensteining the boards and wires all across the table so it doesn't overheat?
That's scary.
Sure.
I'm scared of that.
I'm not smart enough. I
That's also
I
that.
gotta I have other people build my PCs for me. I'm just not. I'm clumsy. I can't
I
do
had
it.
to do one minor PC repair, and it almost made me go completely like lose my mind. Like I was really,
Yes.
really struggling with it because it's just there's a lot of money and the parts are all very small.
Yes. For what it's worth about this conversation, my PC is on the floor underneath my desk. So
Mine's on my desk because it's the cords are not long enough to fit everything if it's not on the desk. That's the only reason.
Mine is on a chest of drawers next to my desk, which, yep.
Wow, secret
That's
third
how I do
option.
things.
okay. Yeah, I made a face. I went, okay.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
Yeah, but is it out of character?
No.
I would say no.
No, that's perfectly in character for you. Mr.
All right,
Notes
from
app
Drew.
calendar. Anyway.
Yeah, that's what they call me. From Drew. I mean, you just got to own it. It's fun. From Drew. When do we get After Craft Hours? Parentheses, a stream where you guys work on arts and crafts, maybe fundraiser / subscriber drive.
Is this the right
I'm not
time
very
to
crafty,
say
but
that I've been trying to like remember amongst all the many different tasks that I've been doing that to try to do some test streams in the Discord server of me playing Dwarf Fortress, because that to me Dwarf Fortress is the same as crochet, and that I'll spend a lot of hours doing it to create something that is maybe this big. You know?
You could learn to
Yeah.
make bird
Yeah,
houses.
we could do a
and stuff.
subscriber drive through Dwarf Fortress. That might be fun.
That sounds really fun, honestly.
Yeah. Or we
There's a
just, like,
plan.
take turns running the same world for like 72 hours straight or
Oh my
something.
god. And I will get mad at all of you for playing it wrong. I know I will, but none of you know how to play Dwarf Fortress like I do. That
No.
sounds really fun. I wanted to start a colony with name all of the dwarves after us, and then possibly subscribers if they wanted to. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think
I'm
we
pretty
gotta do
crafty.
that.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
do.
we should do that.
There is a method in place for us to stream, obviously, because we stream this podcast on the Twitch channel.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I want to stream games. This is one of the things that I've wanted to do since we started. We're going to work on it.
Chris also in chat says that he's been considering soldering DIY arcade buttons during this
Yeah,
time.
right?
I think that'd
that
be
sounds
neat.
so sick. Chris,
Yeah.
please, I'd love to watch that. I do have a bunch of crochet projects that I want to finish, so I might do some crochet on stream if I can figure out a good camera setup.
Oh, he's doing it right
Yeah,
now.
It'd be
he
so
says.
good if our channel was entirely just this podcast and then like crafts. Like
That
never
would be
any
so
games.
good.
Just those two
Be
things.
very good.
All right, from Bullion. What is something you want to do before summer/winter comes to an end? That's kind of a long span of time. If you just said summer, I could narrow it.
That's for
Um,
Luke. He's on the other side of the world.
oh, right. There we go. I'm
Oh,
stupid.
Yeah.
it's me, Luke. Hi, it's me.
What, Luke?
Can I
Where'd
say
he
something
come
about
from?
Yakuza or
I miss
Civilization?
him. I haven't gotten a chance to talk
Oh
to
my
Luke in
god,
ages.
it was one of the nicest things to send. It's like I'm sending like a bottle over the ocean when
Yeah,
I send
I
Luke a
bet.
DM. It's really fun. Ugh, I need to go to the beach though. I haven't been to the beach yet, so that's what I need to do.
I got my driver's
I've been.
license, so that's done.
Hell yeah.
That's good. And I played Vagrant Story last summer, and I still haven't written a big write up about it, but I want to do that. So that's my next writing project.
Let's see. I've been to the beach a few times, but I want to go
Nice.
again. I like the beach. The beach is
Beach is
just good.
good.
And
Yeah.
it's a nice place to go and feel your troubles and your cares just kind of melt away, or like
Yep.
have the tide pull them into the ocean. You're like, yeah,
Absolutely.
fuck off.
And then like to me the post beach nap is one of the best parts of the
Always
beach.
good.
Yep.
Always
Oh
cozy.
man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
take a
Just the
shower,
strange
collapse in the
energy.
bed.
Yes. Oh man,
Yes.
it's amazing.
It's so good.
And like if you can fit a hot dog in there somewhere,
Ugh.
perfect day.
Yes, that's so true.
Yep. So yeah, I
On a
want to do
new
at least
gym
one more of
workout
those.
schedule.
Hell
Starting
yeah.
that up again.
Oh, I have
Nice.
a personal trainer app that I use that I really like.
There you go.
And if you want a discount code, I can give you one.
Maybe I
Yeah.
have a ladies gym near me where I take classes. Can I
Sick.
use my tube TV and thing? That thing has a DVD.
Oh!
That thing has a DVD player that I can just like
Oh, pop a
play
DVD in
workout
there.
DVDs on too.
That
So
rocks.
some days at work,
Oh
some days
yeah.
at the gym, which is very good.
Yeah.
A
I've
coworker
been
at Double Fine found me that, and I love that television. So good.
That's so nice. Yeah, I've been thinking about starting a pole class because I emailed
Nice.
Lee Alexander and it was like, how much strength training do you need to do? She sent me a very long email that was
Man,
like,
man,
just
she's in
go.
Yeah.
fucking shape.
Oh my God,
Like
she's
when she posts videos and
shredded.
pictures of that, I'm like, holy god, what the
I
fuck?
know it's crazy, and it's never. It's Fitspo for me. It really is. Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah. There we go. That's a form of craft on stream. That's crafting your
Those are
body.
adjustable. They're great.
Yeah.
I love them.
Hell yeah, that rocks.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Let's see. From I once was a cat. When's the last time you treated yourself? And what
I have
was
to leave the room to answer this question. Go talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back.
it?
This Monday, I had
Dita,
my
Dita's
first
treating themselves
drink.
by getting away from us.
I had sake on Monday. I don't drink very much. I drink like 2 or 3 times a year. I got some sushi and a cup of sake, and that was my treat for me, which was very, very nice.
Nice. Let's see. I treated myself pretty much all of last week because me and my friends were at a house in Maine, and so it was a lot of just eating and drinking, especially having a lot of really good seafood because we were in Portland. So I had like several different lobster rolls, and each one, well, no, the first 2 were better than the last couple, but they were all really, really good. Lobster rolls are great. If you're in any place that can actually catch fresh seafood, get a lobster roll. It'll change your life.
Okay. I am not a video game vinyl person, but after I saw the movie Superman, I really wanted to watch the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy again. And there's just a certain amount of times before you watch a movie every day where you feel like maybe I should move on to something else. So I played the game and then I finished the game. It's pretty short. So I found on eBay Mondo released a soundtrack vinyl. And
Listen,
I bought it.
it's a good game, but it did beat Psychonauts 2 for best narrative at the Game Awards.
I'm sorry. I am sorry. I don't
That's fine.
know
It's a
if
good game.
best
It's a very good
narrative.
game.
I really enjoyed it. They are my blorbos from my shows.
They're cool.
They
It's
just
cool.
are. And it's a beautiful vinyl, gatefold vinyl, colored, beautiful colors
Oh,
in
really
there, original illustrations. And what's nice about the soundtrack is they like invented a band for the game, and they have a bunch of hair metal songs that they wrote that are pretty sick, honestly.
Nice.
So it's nice to have
That's
it.
Arcadia vinyl.
Hell
right
yes,
there. Very good.
absolutely. The most
Yeah,
Harper
Where do we-
object that ever
Of course you
existed.
would have that.
What?
Yep.
Yeah.
I like it has these lovely the second printing, these lovely blue.
Ooh, I love
Ooh.
that. It's beautiful.
Yeah, vinyls are great. They're super fun.
Yeah, no, my husband is like an indie rock guy, so we have like hundreds of vinyls, and we are
Yeah, that's
constantly
the
always
way.
buying new vinyls,
Hundreds
and
of
it's really
copies of
nice.
vinyls by the National specifically.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like he's not a fan of the National, right? Like you don't. That is one of the bands he loves the most. It is.
Damn,
I
Boston.
I come home and he's always listening to something with jangly guitars. You know, I love that man, but I never listened to Built to Spill before I met him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It smells all right.
I like Built to Spill. I like that one album.
Mhm.
Anyway, we listened to it. We went to Vermont, another place where you should
Very
have
cool.
seafood if you can get it. And Vermont weed, also weed products are very nice there. And we went on a bunch of hikes, and it was really sweet. And I let he was had to drive the whole time, so I let him pick the music, and it was Built to Spill, Bruce Springsteen. I think a little Fleetwood Mac made its way in there.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
he's his favorite. One of his favorites is The Band, which is Bob Dylan's band
Yes.
that went on to become The Band, and that to me I can really only appreciate it in an anthropological sense. I would say it is me learning about music that white people's parents introduced their children to. 'Cause my parents were listening to Ravi Shankar.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was fun. That was also a way I treated myself, I suppose.
Mhm. I'm gonna, if we're talking about music and treating ourselves, I'm gonna treat myself tonight right after this. A band that I like called the Pool Kids is doing an
Hey.
album release show that
Hell
is
yeah.
also a karaoke party,
Oh,
and
that's
I,
Nathan's
of course,
perfect
am going to go to that.
that's your
Yeah, you
natural
love that
habitat.
shit.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
oh,
no. When I like saw the ad for this, I was like, wait, what? What? For
yeah.
me?
Yeah, it's exactly for you. Oh, I did get tickets to Nine Inch Nails at Barclays. Me and my husband
Oh
decided to
hell
go
yeah!
together. So we got pretty decent seats also. So
Nice.
I'm pretty
All
fucking stoked
right.
about that. Yeah. Nine Inch Nails is like my favorite band. So I've seen them once before in a more intimate setting, but I've never been to Barclays before a show before.
Trent
So I'm pretty
Reznor. It
excited.
all
Yeah.
comes back to Aaron Sorkin.
Yes, it does. It all does. Aaron, baby. We got Ron. What's
Yeah.
up?
Let's get Aaron Sorkin and members of Nine Inch Nails on the
I'm
show.
sure
I don't
Trent
think
would
that'll be
do
too
it.
hard.
You could do it. You
Yeah.
get it done.
I'm sure. I'll send him an email. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. From Jason Sands Argonauts. I took tomorrow off because a bridge between me and my job is going to be closed this weekend for resurfacing. I should spend time sharpening my knives and reseasoning my carbon steel pans, but I also want to do nothing but finish Death Stranding. Can you either encourage or shame me to do the reasonable thing?
Here's the thing. When you are reseasoning your pans, there will be downtime. What do you want to do during that downtime?
There's a lot
Oh.
of cutscenes in that game too, where you could
Absolutely.
probably sharpen a knife during
Yeah.
some of
Yeah.
those cutscenes.
Just an idle activity while you're listening to all
Yeah.
the techno babble. I think you can actually
Yeah.
accomplish both of these things. I really do.
Yeah. They sound
There's
very
like a
compatible as
20-minute
activities.
monologue at the end of the first game of
Yeah.
just Die Hardman being like laying it all out, and you could
Die Hardman being like,
you could sharpen
this is
like
how you
3
reseason
knives.
a pan.
Remember in Metal Gear Solid 4 where there's just extended sequences of real eggs cooking?
Yes.
Yep.
She gets
Yeah.
it right at the end. She gets it
I'm
right at
so
the end.
happy. Good job for you. Good job, Sonny. Finally, you didn't break the yolk.
Yeah.
All right. From Ahab, the captain who hangs
Well.
out in our Discord.
Sure.
If you haven't already, can you all recommend some good pieces of games criticism that would help non-gaming audiences engage with games as a medium? I have some bookmarks on Jacob Geller's videos, Howl's Driving Off the Map, and assorted pieces by others. But what would be a good anchor text that would motivate someone to think about how games communicate and what they offer? And they added a note. So here's why. I'm teaching a class on video games in an American Lit seminar in the future. Welcome all suggestions and recommendations. Also, Harper's work has inspired my research and critical perspective for years. So an added thank you for your ongoing efforts.
I'm sorry. I'm fucking sorry, dude. Thank you. They should hunt down like Evan's old work or something. Probably,
Oh yeah,
right?
The Natural
Evan
by
Narcissus?
Evan
Yes,
Narcisse.
yeah.
Yeah, The Natural is that was my first introduction to like Black American specific games criticism. Before Evan got onto the scene, Black gamers really were largely ignored, even though they make up a huge amount of the player base.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's an example of a writer who is both just engaging with games on their own term, but really putting it through the perspective of like their experiences, and
Yeah.
not in a way that's like too new games journally either.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
pretty like I think Evan is like one of the most
Evan's
solid writers that you could probably recommend to someone.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he is such a fucking cool dude. I really love that dude.
Yeah,
The
he's great.
Natural is the essay I recommend because it is all about the black haircut, The Natural, and how it was impossible for a time for him to be able to find that haircut in a game when he wanted to play as a black man. A haircut that black men are all very familiar with, and one that was completely absent from games where black characters appeared. And what
Yeah.
that says about the production of games, who the assumed audience of games are, et cetera, et cetera. I also think
Mhm.
it's worth it to have some cinema criticism in this course, because that was my criticism of the moving image was my way into understanding how to think about games as moving images. My favorite piece of film criticism is Pauline Kael's Trash Art in the Movies. I think that's especially helpful because it is talking about what you get out of pulp and popular culture that you don't get out of fine arts. And the reason why you should be looking at those things in addition to looking at more highfalutin forms of art, which to me really gave me an entry point into thinking about games and how to think critically about them.
They also mentioned
I
the
just
one that I think is great too, which is James Howell's Driving Off the Map. But that's
Oh
like
yeah.
that's like super conceptual,
Mhm.
and not very conversational. So finding things where it sounds a little bit, I love James. Where
Yeah.
it sounds a little bit
Yeah.
more less like a critic talking and also a bit more like a person talking is also good. I have that problem. Whenever I write, I sound like a critic and not a person. So
It's
you
a
know,
hard thing
I
to
don't think
do.
so.
Kale has such an
I
incredible facility for being conversational. It's like why I read her
yes,
work so much. She sounds like
that's
she's
Mhm.
just sitting down with you at a cafe and talking about a movie, which is
I think
a
that's
difficult tone.
I think that's a way to draw people in, right? That's like
I
one of the
think so.
reasons why my mind immediately went to Evan. It's like that just sounds like a person talking to me.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. I'm trying to think. I mean, I do think Lee's very famous, infamous, I guess, piece for what used to be known as Gamma Sutra, but is now
Gamma
known as
Yeah,
Sutra.
no
Game
game
Developer.
developer.
Um,
About gamers being dead.
yeah, I mean, I do think it is worth reading because I don't think she was wrong.
Mhm.
The assumed audience of games does inform their development. And the argument she was making in that piece was that we need to recognize now that because everyone has a game playing device in their pocket, the category that is gamer is no longer a niche. It encompasses possibly everyone in the world. And I don't think she was wrong. I think I mean, Wordle is an example of how she is more right than ever. We know
Mhm.
multiple people nowadays that play a little game on their phone every day. They are gamers. You don't have to make a video game then exclusively for people who self-identify as gamers.
Yeah.
And that's what she was saying, and it was taken in extraordinarily bad faith. I think it might be interesting to reread it with removed from the moment that produced it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's see. From Birds Say Trans Rights.
They do.
Um,
I hear them every
yeah,
morning outside
constantly.
my window.
Yeah, and I'm like, look, I don't disagree, but can you keep it down a little bit? I'm just trying to see. Okay. Do you ever find your actual taste in games and your aspirations for the medium as a whole to be at odds? As an example, I played and enjoyed a lot of the faux retro games that just kind of iterate on old concepts, and I'll probably keep buying them. But I also agree with a lot of the criticism people have of how limited those sorts of games are in terms of artistic ambition.
Just play old stuff. Right? Like
Yeah.
that's part of the secret. That's part of the secret to if you are thinking that a thing that is current is underserving you, the chances are that that thing probably does already exist and you can find it. You just have to dig for it a little.
I
Hmm.
mean, yeah, I definitely find myself playing things that I'm ideologically opposed to. I also find myself watching movies and reading books and listening
Yeah,
to
yeah.
music that I have ideological oppositions
Oh
to.
yeah.
I
No,
am a
I was listening
Lana
to a
Del Rey
song the other day
fan.
that had a
You
yeah, I
know?
was listening to a song yesterday because I really like to, discover new music. And so I found this band that I was enjoying a lot as just like kind of, ear candy, like, dumb kind of like rap metal, and then they like had a verse about like riding in a Cybertruck and said something about Elon Musk, and I was like, damn it, god damn it. But it's still fun to listen to. The music is still
Yeah, I mean,
enjoyable.
there's always that moment where you're like, I saw a good post on Tumblr that was like, oh no, black metal band I just listened to has a section that says
Yeah, they're
controversy on
Nazis.
their Wikipedia page.
Yeah, or
Oh,
if it's
great.
black
It
metal,
was
they're just
just,
Nazis.
the follow up was, oh, okay. It was just tax evasion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dangerous. I think about this frequently because I am a fan of the works of known sex pest Warren Ellis, right? Like I can't deny that those comics had a huge influence on me. And me and Jaffe were talking about that on 52 Pickup the other day. But it is also like I want to live in a world where famous comic book writers don't use their clout to fuck fans.
Yes.
I really, really want to live in that world.
It's a perspective thing too. Like I don't know how they phrased it in that, but they were talking about aspirations for like games or whatever. And
Yeah, it's like maybe the ambitions for like games to evolve and change as an art form or whatever.
Yeah, but it's also like don't place that on a medium. Don't place that
Yeah.
on art in general, right? Like you just find the thing that works for you, kind of.
Yeah, that you enjoy.
Games are. I say this desperately. Well, maybe not desperately because I'm not just looking for jobs in games, but maybe I get jobs in games again. But I think games are probably the worst they've ever been. Quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, you're not wrong, I don't think. I think that the industry is at a level of desperation that we're just chasing bigger number. And that leads to decisions that aren't necessarily ambitious or creative, right? But I also think that you, as an individual, should never mistake your purchasing power for a political statement.
It's totally fine to just be selective too, right? Like, find those small things, find those margin spaces. Again, look at old stuff. I've been playing like Ultima Underworld. I came from that's almost as old as I am, right? And I'm old now, so you just got to dig around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also the other thing is like, maybe games at large are in a bad way, and of course they are financially and in terms of people being able to make money while creating them. But there are also just so many of them, and I think there are a lot of people doing really creative and interesting things.
Yeah.
Again, just in the margins. They're hard to find, but they're out there. And so, I think that it's similar to like trying to find new music. It's hard to do, but you can put in the effort on a regular basis and really like, discover those diamonds in the rough. And then not just, play them and enjoy them, but also tell other people about them. And like that can be your own little way of helping and maybe expanding the like ambitions of people who might create games or might like want to play them at least.
For like every faux retro game Bird Say Trans writes that you pick up, make a note of that you've bought another one of those, and then find another weird game you probably wouldn't have picked up otherwise and make that your next thing. David and I do this for movies all the time. Like I've been watching a lot of MCU garbage, and we bought Sorcerer, the Criterion edition of the Friedkin movie Sorcerer, and we both said to each other, okay, we've watched enough bullshit. We have to watch this DVD now.
Well, and also, I mean, an upside to the current landscape, horrible as it is in many other ways, is that things like Steam Next Fest and Game Pass and whatnot have made it easier to try games than Day of the Dev, stuff like that. So, you can just do you can do like a smorgasbord approach. Just try this and try that and try that. And be like, oh yeah, I found something cool here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. All right. From Treethan, I promise that we're almost to the end of the mailbag. How do we even recover from the fact that most of the major media/news orgs are sanitizing what Trump and co are doing? We are having the military and various U.S. agencies being turned against civilians, and we have places like the New York Times reporting with the most sanitized headlines of all time. Are they all just cowards? To answer the second question first, yes, of course they are.
It's a profit motive. The profit motive will make you a coward. That's it. If you're chasing, if you have investors that want you to make as much money as possible, you'll be disincentivized from printing anything that's controversial, even in your headline.
And I think they're also cowards in the sense of just like they want this all to be normal so that they can keep just like doing their job day to day. They don't want to reckon with the fact that the country is changing rapidly into something that is overtly, more so than it has ever been, a fascist project. And so they're just like, oh no, it's just another, business as usual, just another day in the office. Like I think it's comforting for them, as it is also comforting for their investors.
The solution to sanity is also just look at the things that are around you that you can change.
Yes.
It's very easy to look at, like, what can I do about Fox News? And the answer is
Fucking
sorry,
nothing, really.
Yeah,
probably
Sorry.
nothing.
not. But
Yeah.
you have to figure out the things that you can do around you, right?
Literally, like, go to a workshop on how to de-arrest people. Go to meetings to learn how to deal with ICE in your neighborhood. Join the DSA if you are so inclined. Talk to your neighbor. Those are the
Yeah,
ways that
start a
you
tenant
diffuse
union.
these things. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Overthrow your landlord. Kill him. I
Just
mean, in
don't
Minecraft.
kill him. Don't listen to Nathan. Just start a tenant union, but don't do the other thing Nathan said. You generally just like participating in a real life community will make you feel better. It just will.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, I mean, it will make you feel so much better. And I saw like, you know, this is like not revelatory information, but like there was somebody who posted on Blue Sky the other day, like it's becoming more and more apparent than like ever that people need some sort of like hobby or activity that does not involve being online. I would say
Yes.
that's your starting point. Whether
Yes.
it is like something really substantial in terms of like, doing activist work, or if it's just like going out of your house and hanging out with people, just do something like that because
Yeah.
your sanity meter will refill. Like
Literally go
slowly
to a
but
party.
surely, not
Throw a
overnight.
party. Go to a
Yeah,
happy hour.
yeah,
Like just go to the library and ask your librarian for a book recommendation. Just talking
yep.
to another person that is passionate about some of the things that you're passionate about, or even just I went and I saw a movie by myself and I talked to my seatmate. It was at one of those dinner theater places. So I was like sitting alone and there was someone else on the other side of the table. And I just like, we talked about the movie and before the movie and after the movie. And I went from having a
Hmm.
panic attack to feeling really good.
Yeah. All right. From Jason Sans Argonauts, what's your favorite thing you've eaten lately?
Oh my God, I have an immediate answer to this. I was in Los
Yeah.
Angeles to celebrate my father-in-law's 75th birthday. Happy birthday to my
Mhm.
father-in-law. And we went to a place that my husband has wanted to go to for so long, a Thai restaurant called Jitlada, which was discovered by Jonathan Gold, who is the only food critic to win a Pulitzer and one of my husband's favorite writers. This restaurant was featured in a documentary called City of Gold, which is just about Jonathan Gold. He passed away some years ago, and it's a wonderful
Mm.
documentary. There's a great scene in it where he gets a call from his editor, and he's like, "Jonathan, you're a month late on the article you said you'd write for me." And he's like, "Yeah, totally. I'm gonna write it." And then he hangs up and gets in his car and drives away
Damn,
to go to a
different
restaurant.
times. You're a
Yeah.
month late and you're not fired.
Yeah, I mean, if you
Just like,
got a
whatever,
Pulitzer,
finish the
you
article.
can kind of do whatever you want.
It's
But
true.
it is the Jitlada. We went there, and I had this incredible soft tofu dish with like a spicy, savory sauce, and I still am tasting it in my mouth, and I cannot stop thinking about it. I can't wait to go back there again.
I have
Yeah.
had a new kind of hummus by a company in Ithaca. It's good. You should try it. There's
Hell
a
yeah.
thing you can incorporate into your day-to-day life.
Yeah. Just don't buy
It's quite
Sabra.
good. Yeah, good. It was a good alternative hummus.
Hell
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. For me, it's got to be those lobster rolls. I already talked about them enough.
Mm.
I
Oh
waxed
yeah.
poetic about them, but I will say, I will add the bread was incredible and they are very buttery. Yeah,
It's the butter that
it's
really,
good stuff. Oh, it's so the butter that makes it. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. Good
Um,
stuff.
an added detail is that there was one type that was super garlicky. That doesn't work so well in lobster rolls because it
Interesting.
overpowers the lobster, and so you just
Yeah.
like get a bite of like garlic. And I love garlic, but I was still like,
It's a very
I
subtle
feel like this
flavor,
is.
lobster, It's like
Hmm.
very, very light. So I love
I
garlic
also
too,
can't
but it's
believe that
strong.
we consider lobster to be so like fancy and important now when it used to just be like they're sea roaches. It used to be peasant food, and we've
Yeah.
elevated it into like the thing that you spend $30 on to get like part of one of. That's just money's fake. Anyway, all right, from
This is my
Rimpaugus.
last
There we
one,
go.
and then I have to turn
Yes.
into a
Oh,
pumpkin.
this is the last one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So great timing. What's everyone's favorite Pokemon? I want to know both overall and based solely on design.
Hmm.
God,
don't
I
know.
think my answer is the same for both. It's Eevee. I
Uh-huh.
love Eevee. I
Yeah, all
love
the
Eevee.
evolutions are so good.
They're so good. My
Yeah.
favorite evolution is the fairy one. That's Sylveon, I think.
Yes.
I love the trans rights fairy. I love her. But Eevee is just I love the idea of Eevee as like a representation of the limitless potential of childhood. You could be anyone, but isn't
Do
it just
anything.
nice to be a little Eevee?
Damn, that's a beautiful answer.
Thank you. I think philosophically
Ah.
about Pokemon.
I like a good old Meowth.
Hell
I like
yeah.
a little freak money
Yeah,
guy.
that really stands for you. Like a quick, weird little guy.
I like a little gremlin creature
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
shaking me
Let's
down.
see.
Really does. Just
What is the
throwing
other?
cash at people to get them to go away.
Yeah, you know what I'm gonna go with? I've never even really thought about this much, but the alt Meowth, the one from the
Alolan
tropical one.
Meowth.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Alolan.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's just like he looks like if you put Meowth in the like machine from no, not the machine from the fly. If you like
Put him in the
fuse
crystal.
Meowth with with SpongeBob,
Yeah.
Mhm.
that's what you would get. This kind
He's
of
like
scruffy little go-getter.
he really looks like what if Meowth smoked weed? It's what it
Yeah.
looks like to
Very
me.
good.
Yeah. What if he discovered that he could, instead of shaking people down, make money through selling weed? He's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, this is my
Yeah.
thing now.
Drug dealer
I'm
Meowth.
just a chill
Yeah.
little guy.
Nintendo
Yeah.
Jotsu.
All right. On that note, we should probably wrap things up. Harper, where can people find you?
Hi. Not many places right now.
In
What
your
what
apartment
is
hanging out.
what is my Blue Sky even? I think it's
Dreamcast away.
Dreamcastaway at Blue Sky. That's me right now. I'm doing like
Mhm.
just writing on the side. I'm pitching again to places. That's fun.
Wow.
I'm gonna have to wait. I'm gonna have to wait like a month to hear it. Like I'm gonna have to do the hustle and everything. So we'll see. So there might be some writing coming in the future. But also I'm
Oh
not.
yeah.
I'm not in a position where I need to be cranking out a ton of writing still. So I'm gonna be a little selective and kind of go from there. Maybe
Oh
I'll get
yeah.
to review a thing here or there again, which will be fun. Like a
Awesome.
Euro gamer or an endless mode or something is probably where you'll find me.
Yeah. You could,
Also, you
Aftermath,
guys.
expect
Yeah.
pitches, and
That's true
our
too.
rates are good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You
I
never
think
know.
so. I hope so.
you
Yeah.
can figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been Aftermath Hours, the weekly podcast of aftermath.site. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe at aftermath.site/products. We record every week live on Twitch at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday. And we'll do it again next week, and again and again and again, forever until, we die or the country falls or whatever. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and have a good one.